Hello, and thanks for tuning in. This is the US Futures Weekly Chart Analysis for the week ending 3rd of February 2023. First chart is the US Dollar Index Futures. You can see that price traded both above and below the previous close this week, which is showing you that there was quite a bit of volatility in the market. We'll just put the lines in quickly so you can see where price has been in the past. This is where some supply came in, the highs of the range. Here's the breakdown line, the secondary line. You can see the spread increased considerably this week on an increase in volume. The increased spread after spreads contracted prior to that, this expansion in spread often happens when spreads contract like that. So it's quite a volatile week. This market has a bearing on many other markets because they're priced in US dollars. So a higher US dollar in this case will put pressure on a lot of those associated markets and give them headwinds, so to speak. Now, if this market continues higher, the next breakdown line is here, and that's where this market may find some difficulty. There may be some case for saying the lows of the range there, which just dipped below the actual breakdown line, may cause an initial headwind for this market. So it's not far below that now. But after quite a big move this week, you're probably likely to see price just stabilise a little bit sideways, perhaps just below this level here for most of the week, and perhaps not really seriously challenge these higher levels at this point in time. Next chart is the E-mini S&P. This is S&P 500 Index Futures. Put some lines in quickly. We had some buying support come in here. And again here. And prices moved up and challenged the highs of the range. And here's the old breakdown line in the past. Comes through at a similar level. But price did move back to the safety of that level this week. So it really wasn't strong enough to continue higher and really push into this zone above. Volume increased to above average this week. I would expect almost certainly this market will test for supply early next week, and then you'll see a response depending on how much supply is drawn out. If supply or selling pressure is increased, the market will probably come back, and this is the level here where increased buying support may be found. And if supply is found to be low, you might see a more substantial challenge to this zone above. US Treasury 10-year note futures, which made an attempt to push higher this week, but that was thwarted by the strength in the US dollar. You can see the market appeared poised to break out here, tested for supply last week as an inside bar within the range of this previous bar, and price was moving higher this week, but with the strength in the US dollar late this week, the price was pushed back down again. And although it's held on to the lows of that bar, it's looking a little vulnerable now, and almost certainly there'll be a test for supply early next week. And similar to the index futures, if supply is low, there'll be the opportunity for price to move higher. But if supply continues to be drawn out, I expect price will be forced to pull back, at least to some degree. Copper price futures were also placed under some pressure this week with the strengthening in the US dollar. You can see that prices been up at the old breakdown line, and it was attempting to absorb its way through with a push into the zone, some absorption here, but the strength in the US dollar has forced price lower. Now, I expect there'll be some increased buying support drawn out at this level, which is pretty much at the $4 level. So if price does continue lower, that's where I expect some increased supply to be drawn out, and it'll probably last down to 375. Gold price futures. Gold price futures, similar to the copper price futures, have some buying support in the background. Down here is the breakout. There's some testing of the breakout. Now, the breakdown line comes through there. You can see the absorption that took place as price absorbed its way through that level. Little gap out was a sign of strength at the time. Here's the breakdown line above that. That's the zone where supply is expected to be drawn out. And the market's been having a pretty good go at absorbing its way through that level, but the strength in the US dollar has really caused price to dip lower this week. It all happens so fast, the market doesn't get any chance to really absorb that weakness, which would normally happen if it took place over a longer period of time. Now, you may find there is some opportunity to regain some of that lost ground, especially if the US dollar goes sideways from now, just to consolidate for a period. If this market continues lower, the obvious level is the old breakdown line, which is around 1800, just above. What's really important in the near term is what happens to the US dollar, the strength or weakness in that market. If it goes sideways or even lower and consolidates for a period, it will allow this market to move up a little bit. But if there's continual strength in the US dollar, it'll probably push price lower, at least in the near term. And I expect there may be some increased buying support at that level where the gap was, which is about 1822, and then further increased support where this absorption took place previously, just around the 1800 level. Silver price futures really took a hit on that strength in the US dollar. They have the buying support in the background and the breakout and the fairly high consolidation and test of the breakout before a secondary breakout. Now, price has been moving sideways, absorbing supply and preparing perhaps for a challenge to this zone above. And there's been some profit taking drawn out in here. And you can see that this week, especially on Friday, with the strength in the US dollar, the market appears to have broken down. If it continues lower, it's most likely going to come down to the 22 level, is where increased buying support should be found, and last down to here. However, similar to the gold market, if the US dollar does move sideways or even lower in consolidation of this week's gain, then this market will get some opportunity to move higher. The question is whether it'll be able to regain back above the breakdown line here. This is a minor breakdown line, but it's a breakdown line all the same, and they're always difficult to overcome. So that'll be at 22, 23.20. That's the level to watch in the near term in the futures market. Light crude price futures also faced headwinds from the strength in the US dollar this week. There's the lines. I was expecting a challenge to this level this week, but really price only came back all week. There was almost no attempt to push higher whatsoever. Price did remain slightly above the low of this bar, which is a positive. Now you've got strong support in the background back here, or at least stronger support. So that may offer the opportunity for this market to come back and trade within this range here that's between 72 and 82, thereabouts anyway. It's not looking like there'll be a challenge to the 82 level, at least in the very near term, but there may be a period of time where price trades sideways in this 72 to 82 level. At least that's where it appears there's support at the moment. Aussie dollar currency futures. Saw a breakdown back here and then some moderate buying support come in. A push up to this line as the weakness in the US dollar occurred. This was almost like a period of bullish absorption in here. Price accelerated higher and really put a fair challenge into the 70-cent level, which is an important level on this chart. But the strength in the US dollar this week has caused price to push lower and importantly close below the low of the previous up bar, which is always a bit of a negative. I would expect there'd be some support at this level here, which will be at 68.8, and that buying support really will last down to probably this level here. This is the zone where price may need to come back and spend some time in, especially if the US dollar continues its strength. If the US dollar does move sideways for a period, you may find this 70-cent level is where price continues sideways for a while instead, just above, just below 70 cents. Bitcoin futures. Let's put the lines in quickly. Now you can see last week we discussed this bar here on the very high volume and whether that was supply being drawn out. Well, it was supply being drawn out, but did the buyers have the upper hand and they were absorbing supply, or were the sellers going to gain the upper hand and price be pushed back to possibly this level here? And as it turns out, this week moved higher on very low volume. It did close in the middle, so there is still supply being drawn out, but we can now be pretty sure that at least last week, this bar, the buyers had the upper hand and they were absorbing supply being drawn out from the left from here, where there may be some stale supply trapped to the left. There would also be some profit taking from below and possibly an attempt by some to short the market, thinking that it's had a pretty good run in the near term and price would come back to this level before any attempt to push higher. However you want to cut it, the fact that price moved higher this week, following that very high volume last week on a narrow spread, suggests that supply was absorbed this week, and that allowed market to continue higher on reduced and quite low volume, to be honest. Now, there's still some chance that supply will continue to be drawn out from the left here, and it's going to happen for a while now. Here's the next zone where supply is likely to be drawn out from the left. So you may find this market is going to be forced, for the most part, to be working in a grinding action, something like this, where price attempts to move higher, consolidates higher, consolidates higher, that sort of thing over a period. At this point, the safer level below, if price does move lower, is here. but that will move ahead as price goes on. If there's a serious challenge to this level, this is the breakdown line in the past, and price can clearly get above it, then this will become the next level where support will be found if price accelerates higher and draws out some increased supply. So look for this market to continue grinding higher at the moment. It appears that the worst of the supply was drawn out 2 weeks ago, and it's been absorbed by the market, at least at this point in time. I expect there'll be some fits and starts as the market attempts to push higher, with supply continuing to be drawn out from time to time, which will cause some issues. We'll just see how the market is able to negotiate a path through that as time goes on. US dollar index futures are back. The lines make pretty good sense on this chart. Always gives you more confidence when you're analysing the market. They draw it pretty much the same way every time. You could easily see that the thrust lower was narrowing as price moved down here, and it did look like the downtrend was becoming a little tired, possibly exhausted. Here was the lows of the previous range, and you can see that lines up pretty well there. This dip below turns out to be a fakie, and price moves higher. Now, there is a chance the market will find some increased pressure just here. So there is a reasonable chance price will just move sideways from here for at least a bar or two, which is a couple of weeks in this case. There may be a little bit of down, a little bit of up, but sideways generally. And that'll allow some of those other associated markets a chance to catch up and absorb some of that weakness that entered after the strength in this market. And that would probably be a logical way the markets will contend with all that. And that will allow the E-mini, the 10-year note futures, copper, gold, silver, light crude, Aussie dollar, all to attempt to consolidate some of those losses that were forced on them this week with the strength in the US dollar, and allow them some chance to absorb some of that pressure that was drawn out and recover somewhat. Okay, thanks for your time. Hope that was worthwhile. See ya.